Rogues, rascals, reviewables, rorts and rip-offs. In fact, a whole bunch of ours. Season 1, Episode 2. My name's Mark Smith of DC Partners Solutions. I'd love you to check in at our website, www.dcpartners.solutions/podcast. You can ring us anytime, 1300 327 123, or instant message chat with us in our webpage, bottom right-hand corner. Use the tools. Well, just to recap, in Season 1, Episode 1, we set the scene and we discussed a range of sectors and different parties that we might be interested in chatting about, and some of the sectors, our villains and our themes. These sectors that we looked at included real estate and property developers, corporate villains, travel rip-offs, a real favourite, and we've got some huge news on that this week. We talked about malfeasance, which is wrongdoing by government personnel. We didn't really touch on them, but iffy lawyers, and we'll see whether we've got time this week to touch on a couple of iffy lawyers. Miscellaneous shysters, insurance racketeers, banks and receivers. Well, this week we've had a very significant win on behalf of a class action before we even filed a class action. So we managed to, I won't go into the tactics specifically, but it was surprising that it was surprising in some ways that it was unsurprising in others, but it was surprising and pleasant that we got a very good outcome for a group tour. I cannot name the tour operator involved, nor can I name the class members, but it was a group. It was a group of 61, and the entire class had virtually the same claim against the tour operator, so that would be the defendant, and for roughly the same amounts of money, for the same what's called cause of action. So to run a class action, it's necessary that at least 7 people have the same or substantially the same cause of action against at least one defendant. So we had a terrific outcome there. We're still very interested to help people that have been ripped off. And look, we keep reading newspapers all the time. We've got scenic tours charging people $20,000, $40,000, $50,000, $59,000 cancellation fees for trips of lifetimes, and no postponements, travel credits, that sort of thing. There's some real heartbreaking stories out there, and we're terribly, terribly sorry, but interested and willing to help people. And we read these articles about people with these horrendous travel cancellation fees through no fault of the through no fault of the traveller, really. So we're very keen to pursue some of those. Flight Centre, Qantas Airways, Jetstar, people that are sitting on thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I think the latest rort, and it's an absolute scam. Qantas Airways flights in October, clearly not travelling. The Commonwealth Government has imposed travel bans until at least the middle of December, and Qantas Airways is refusing to cancel the flights. I mean, they're just thieving bastards, if I can put it like that. Thieving bastards, taking people's money, and many months ago they've taken people's money. I think I read an example of someone, I think they were going to Chicago or somewhere like that, booked a business class ticket, $12,000 per head or thereabouts, and clearly the flight's not departing, but Qantas refusing to refusing to cancel And then when eventually they will cancel, that well, you can expect a 10-week wait for the poor traveller to get their own money back, and it's just not good enough, Qantas, you thieving bastards. So we're very keen to help people that are victims of Qantas. Flight Centre, we're not hearing wonderful things there. We are hearing that people eventually get their refunds, but it's people are not banks, and if cash flow is particularly tight for Flight Centre, well, really that is a Flight Centre problem. Still hearing occasionally of great difficulty getting through to call centres of Booking.com, Expedia, Webjet, What If, and what have you. So very, very keen to pursue some of these travel villains, and specifically very keen on group tour class actions. We're talking about the insurance racketeers, and this particular racket, that's another R, rackets. Very close to rorts and rip-offs, but this particular one is an absolute racket, and it's plain out and out theft. How it works is the insurance companies sell you a policy, and look, in some, I've seen a range of different policies, but certainly policies up that were, I haven't seen one that renewed before the end of 2019. I'm not saying they're not out there, but I haven't seen one that renewed before the end of 2019 that had the correct wording, and it's wording under what's called business interruption insurance. And typically how business interruption insurance works, let's say you run a 10-pin bowling alley and it burns down, and well, you'd get business interruption, you'd get fire insurance, so the building would be insured, but you can actually insure your losses as well. And you might, let's say you own this 10-pin bowling alley, and this doesn't just apply to 10-pin bowling. It certainly applies to all sorts of professionals. It might apply to doctors, could apply to dentists, candlestick makers, bakers, you name it. If you have a policy that covers business interruption insurance, then I strongly encourage you to look up your policy. Now, if you're at all unsure whether you're covered, by all means, send us a copy of your policy at solutions@dcpartners.solutions. Just email us a copy of your insurance policy, solutions@dcpartners.solutions. And how it's supposed to work is you have a policy that covers your losses in the event your business is interrupted. And there's some absolutely gigantic claims going through, and there's cases gone through in England, and they're doing test cases here. Star Casino. Now, unsurprisingly, Star Casino has had their business interrupted, but interestingly, they claim that their business has been interrupted not by the pandemic, but by government policy. And there are a number of ways to claim. But when I was talking just a moment ago about policies that renewed before the end of 2019, there was an exclusion clause in there that said if your business is interrupted by virtue of a epidemic or a health emergency, or they don't necessarily use the word pandemic, and they also refer to something called the Quarantine Act of, I think it's 1914. And they say, well, look, if your business has been interrupted by a pandemic declared under the Quarantine Act of 1914, it's a Commonwealth Act, well, that's an event that's excluded. Well, the stuff up is that, and we talked about iffy lawyers. Whoever the iffy lawyer is that acted for these insurance companies really has a lot to answer for. And the Quarantine Act of 1914 was actually, however you put it, the Quarantine Act of 1916 or whatever the year was repealed. It was repealed, and so all the insurance policies, however, none of them were updated, and they continue to address an exclusion for pandemics declared under the Quarantine Act, which had been repealed in 2016. And here we are in 2020, and along comes the coronavirus. And of course, there has been no pandemic declared under the Quarantine Act of 1914 or 1916 or whatever the year was, because in fact, the Quarantine Act of 1914 was repealed in 2016. So there will never be a pandemic declared under that particular act because it was repealed. It's gone. And so this iffy lawyer, whoever it is, he or she, whichever firm, has left some sort of gap, and it would appear to be the size of the Grand Canyon, and it would appear you can fly a plane sideways through it, and it could be that thousands and thousands and thousands of businesses out there have business interruption insurance. And so this is a space that we're tremendously interested in. If you have business interruption insurance, or if you don't know, if you've got a policy and you think you might have business interruption insurance, would depend on the business, and clearly business interruption insurance requires that your business is a business and it is indeed interrupted. So look, there's still some fine print, but we'd be very keen to talk to you at solutions@dcpartners.solutions, or come to our website, bottom corner here, use the chat tool. Alternatively, give us a call 1300 327 123, or send us a copy of your insurance policy, solutions@dcpartners.solutions. Okay, in the villains, real estate and developer kind of villains area, we're giving you an update from episode 1 about our friend Ralph Ignatius Palagaru. And we'd indicated there that we'd obtained a consent judgment in the Supreme Court of New South Wales. None of this is private. It was all on court lists, and anyone in the world could have sat in the back of the court. Well, Mr. Palagaru, we have a judgment of the Supreme Court of New South Wales, and in the last 10 days or so, we've gone and obtained a bankruptcy notice, and we've had that served on Ralph Ignatius Palagaru. So our friend Mr. Palagaru, the clock is ticking, and under 6 months from now, we'll be back, and we'll be applying for the sequestration of that particular man's affairs. He's the director of a company. He's the director of a company called Dural Alliances Proprietary Limited in liquidation. I appointed the liquidator there, a man called Daniel Friskin of, I think the company name is O'Brien Palmer Insolvency. Daniel's a good bloke and doing a good job. Oh, our friend Mr. Palagaru fined $50,000, not by ASIC, has not complied with his obligations, not even in liquidation. A director of a company is required to cooperate. He's required to keep books and records, but he's also required to cooperate with the liquidator. So Mr. Palagaru, $50,000 fine by ASIC. Let's see whether his lawyer is a fellow called John Mahoney, sometimes called Mahoney, Mahony, John Mahoney of Mahoney Law at Baulkham Hills in New South Wales, or Norwest Business Park. Let's see whether Mahoney can get our friend Mr. Palagaru out of that ASIC fine. So we've had some very interesting correspondence with our friend Mr. Mahoney. Now, Ralph Palagaru, friend, business partner, silent partner, joint venture partner, refinanced his house to give Craig Adams money to advance money to a company called Golden Arrow International Proprietary Limited, also in liquidation. Advanced that chap, Mr. Craig Adams, $540,000. This is all on the public record. Lodged a caveat. Advanced the money in August 2017, but Mr. Mahoney did not. Mr. Mahoney prepared a deed for Mr. Palagaru, Mr. and Mrs. Palagaru, in August 2017, but the record shows that Mr. Mahoney did not lodge a caveat, and a period of from August to November 2017 went by, and Mr. Mahoney in about November 2017 subsequently lodged this caveat on these properties in Warriewood belonging to Golden Arrow International Proprietary Limited. But in the meantime, our good friends Ian Jordan and Maya, I can't pronounce the surname, Maya beginning with P, you'll see the transcript here, of Australasian Property Group Private Limited, Singapore. Look, they did a personal loan from Ian Jordan and Maya of the company Australasian Property Group Private Limited. Now, I understand that Australasian Property Group Private Limited have, is it Merrill Lynch or KKR, Kohlberg Kravis Roberts, as investors. I reckon they'd be absolutely furious if they'd known, if these investors of Australasian Property Group Private Limited gave unsecured loans to Craig Matthew Adams. Now, somehow, and watch this space, that's all I'm going to say, Australasian Property Group managed to get, and this company's in liquidation, so watch this space, but Australasian Property Group managed to weasel out of Golden Arrow International sometime between August 2017 and November 2017. They managed to wrought, if you like, charges on the real property of Golden Arrow International. Now, there are offences, there are voidable transactions, and watch this space. If you obtain an unfair preference in someone's bankruptcy, that's something that a bankruptcy trustee can do something about. So Craig Matthew Adams happens to know John Francis Mahoney of Mahoney Law, Baulkham Hills. And interestingly, Ralph Palagaru advanced $540,000 to the company of Craig Matthew Adams called Golden Arrow International, and the invoice from John Francis Mahoney of Mahoney Law did not go to Ralph Ignatius Palagaru, or if it did, it was actually paid for by Craig Matthew Adams. It gets murkier and murkier. Ralph Ignatius Palagaru borrowed this $540,000 from a company called Franklin Yeezy Proprietary Limited. it had an interest rate on it, sit down, 6% per month in default. And so the problem is you've got to have an exit plan. If you're borrowing money at 6% per month, I don't know how your maths is, but let's say 1% of $540,000 per month is $5,400. So if you're in default for $540,000 at 6% a month, you're talking $30,000 per month of interest in default. And so that's a real problem for Ralph Ignatius Pelligaro. If you borrow $540,000 and come November of 2017, you discover that your interest, if you've got one, your interest in land at, if you've got one because John Francis Mahoney prepared a deed for you, giving you this interest in this equitable interest in this land at Warriewood, then you want to hope like hell that John Francis Mahoney has lodged a caveat. And it turned out that now the circumstances will be investigated. It's unknown the reasons for the delay, and I'm not accusing John Francis Mahoney of anything. It's just he must have known that it was the exit plan was the exit plan for Mr. Pelligaro to get his $540,000 back, and noting that Mr. Pelligaro would be in default if he didn't get the money back, 6% per month. So it's rather important. It's interesting for Mr. Mahoney to have done his job. So if Craig Matthew Adams paid the bill, it's also interesting who was the client. Was the client Craig Matthew Adams? Was the client Ralph Ignatius Pelligaro? And the mind boggles. So that's our good friends there. Australasian Property Group, Ian Meyer, Craig Matthew Adams, personal loans converting to company loans for no consideration, potentially postponing conduct on caveats. We've got unfair preferences in Craig Matthew Adams's bankruptcy trustee, and on and on and on it goes. Okay, quick update on our friend Tony Daiger from Vogue Construction Group Proprietary Limited in liquidation, and our great mate Max Pracey of Tracy Yap Realty. Max Pracey of Tracy Yap Realty is the bloke that blocked me in the driveway at 26A Hillmont Crescent, Thornlea, and told me that I couldn't attend a public auction. I turned up there at about 2:15 on the particular day for a 2:30 public auction. Maybe it was 20 past, maybe it was 25 past, I don't remember. But public auctions usually, involve the public. And our great mate, Max Pracey, well, according to realestate.com.au, as at this evening, 27th of September, 26A Hillmont is unsold. And, I don't recall the exact date of the auction, but our mate Max Pracey stopped me. Now, who else did he stop from coming? There's a COVID-19 limitation of 20 people attending auctions. So usually I would think if you've got 20 people attending an auction, someone's going to buy it. They can't all be 20 neighbours. Well, I guess they could all be 20 neighbours, but they're all pre-registered. So they're really, really organised neighbours. So our mate, what we did know, Max Pracey rings 000. He doesn't want me there. So something's seriously bizarre is the word that I used in episode 1. Well, we've now got another villain to introduce you to. This is our other mate, Dennis Krillick. That's spelled K-R-I-L-I-C, of Oakville. He's a electrician, license number 19697 73C, New South Wales Fair Trading. Dennis Krillick just happens to also own a whole bunch of real estate in Port Macquarie, and funnily enough, that's where our mate Craig Adams is. He's got lots of connections. Who knows where Craig lives these days, where he's residing? Who knows? But unrelated person, Dennis Krillick. Watch this space. He's a emerging villain, and we'll be sharing some more bits and pieces. Now, Andrew Saunders of Saunders and Staniforth, wonderful town planner, valuer of the town of Orange, does a whole bunch of work for the Commonwealth Bank. Even is good enough to give legal advice. I don't know whether he's qualified. I'd love to see his CV. I've subpoenaed his CV. We're in litigation with our friend Andrew Saunders. He gives legal advice to people, letting them know things he couldn't possibly know about existing use rights. And, well, another week or month or however long has gone by, and we still don't know whether Andrew Saunders has any qualifications to give legal advice. So if you're a client of Andrew Saunders, you got any stories about town planning mishaps, we would love to hear from you. If you know Dennis Krillick of you've invested money with Dennis Krillick in some property development, we'd love to know about that. Vogue Constructions in liquidation, apparently leave behind a trail of destruction. Ralph Pellegaru, Ian Jordan, Maya P, Australasian Property Group. Keith Snell. Now, poor Keith Snell is deceased, but Greg John Walker and Karen V. Walker of 131 MVR, they live on, and their project is called the Archibald. The Archibald at Gosford, $400 million development. Mr. Greg Walker, well, we'll have a little bit more to say about him in the coming weeks. And that's our update on real estate and developer villains. Okay, in the corporate villains section today, we're going to touch on in a little bit more detail our good friends at Byte Operations Proprietary Limited, otherwise known as, and it was previously known as, a company called Carnarvon Cherry Proprietary Limited. And the directors of that, we did discuss them briefly last week, Bernard and Fiona Hall. Now, we're looking at doing two class actions in regards to Byte Operations Proprietary Limited and Carnarvon Cherry. Byte happened to sell apples and cherries, and they happen to sell those apples to Woolworths and Harris Farm. So you may, if next time you pick up a Pink Lady apple, check if it's a Byte apple, and you might want to choke on that. But if you don't, it's really something that we think has got a lot of merit. So we're looking at these two class actions involving Byte Operations Proprietary Limited and Carnarvon Cherry. As I mentioned, the first of those is an employee class action, and we came across this case involving a guy called Daniel Usher, and that's spelled U-S-S-H-E-R, Daniel Usher, and we noticed this in the Federal Circuit Court of Australia, a couple of months ago, and I spoke to Daniel Usher, and Daniel Usher had worked some huge number of hours for Carnarvon Cherry. Now, Carnarvon Cherry seems to, well, it's just a perception, but they seem to wanting to vanish off the corporate radar. And look, if I was being unkind, I'd say that they were phoenixing into this company called Byte Operations. So Carnarvon Cherry has an interesting history, and it is currently being sued by one of our associates called DCP Litigation Holdings for something like $600,000. So I think when that case is over, it's going to be very interesting to see if there's any assets left in Carnarvon Cherry Proprietary Limited, or if they've all been phoenixed into Bite Right Operations Proprietary Limited. Anyway, it seems that Bite Right Operations is now the Phoenix entity, and we're also looking at a grower class action, and there's a mail out going out this week to a number of growers. There's about 20 or 30. We've got a lot more growers than that on our database, but we think, well, it seems that they currently have something like 20 or 30 growers that are supplying apples and cherries into their packing shed. And one of the companies I was a director of, I was an associate director, not a director, but an associate director, called Homeward Bound Holdings Proprietary Limited. Now that company, I won't tell you everything about it, but that company did grow cherries, and it had arrangements previously with Carnarvon Cherry Proprietary Limited. Bernard and Fiona Hall, as I said, are the directors of that, and we say that seems to be phoenixing into this company called Bite Right Operations Proprietary Limited. I'm going to put up a lot more information on our website about Bite Right Operations Proprietary Limited, but there is a great deal of grey areas, let's put it that way, grey areas about Bite Right Operations Proprietary Limited. I will put up a SBS Dateline transcript, and I'll put up the links to the SBS Dateline program, and that was sometime in June. And this company, Bite Right Operations, it must be, well, it's going into murky waters, let's put it that way. It is, according to the director, Fiona Hall, now she, on SBS Dateline, amongst other things, she admitted that this company that grows fruit ran out of water at one of its orchards. So I don't know. And there's a drought, and there was bushfires. So, and there was, record heat waves. So I will put up a link, and I'll provide the transcript. Fiona blamed the drought in an interview with, I think they were called Central West Regional Development, and I'll put up the link. It's on YouTube. You can look at it, and you can be the judge yourself. But Fiona didn't seem to take the blame. She's allegedly a Nuffield scholar, Fiona Hall, and Fiona wasn't that keen to accept the blame for running out of water. But it turns out when you're going to grow fruit, you've got to start pumping sufficiently early out of your bores, and fill your dams and all the rest. So there's some questions in my mind whether she's a genuine Nuffield scholar, and I happen to know, and I'll put up the links. Fiona asked me to write the application for her Nuffield scholarship. I didn't. I wouldn't. But I do know who did write it, and she was successful. And the person that wrote it, it was not Fiona Hall. So there's some questions there about the real bona fides there. I think of Bernard and Fiona Hall, Bite Right Operations, and Carnarvon Cherry. So grower class action. If you want to join our grower class action, there's a link. And if you've been growing fruit in the past, this is maybe, and I think from the documents that I've seen, and the documents that I've assembled concerning Homeward Bound Holdings Proprietary Limited, we have questions. Fiona in SBS Dateline claimed that her staff were paid $80 a day. Now, that seems an extraordinary $70 a day seems to me to be an extraordinarily low figure. What is confusing, and why we think that there is scope for a grower class action, is the bills that went to the growers were for considerably more than $80 a day for staff. In fact, we've got one staff member who has no date of birth, no name. Sorry, he has a name. I won't say his name, but I might publish some details. In fact, I probably will. I will publish the invoice. There you go. I will publish the invoice, and the invoice has the person's name on it. The particular person in mind, we did some searches, and this person has no date of birth, according to Carnarvon Cherry. It has no date of birth, that person, no date of birth. He worked 180 something hours in the week. Now, there only is 168 hours in the week. So even if he worked every hour in the week, we got billed, we, being Homeward Bound Holdings Proprietary Limited, got billed for in excess of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for this particular bloke. So if he exists, he does not have a tax file number. He does have a tax file number exemption for being under 18. And his, so this under 18 worked more than 24 hours a day. And we got a bill, Homeward Bound Holdings, for $4,000, more in excess of $4,000 for 1 week when, according to Fiona, on SBS Dateline, they pay their staff something like $80 a day. So you go figure that out. I say that there is scope for this grower class action, and for those growers that want to join us and want to get want to be charged a fair sum and don't want the assets of Carnarvon Cherry to end up phoenixed into Bite Right Operations Proprietary Limited, now's the time to contact us. And we are putting together this class action, as I mentioned. Now, we have been talking about this for some months, and the reason it hasn't proceeded until now was because of there was a public inquiry. I'll put the links. The federal government, the Treasurer, ran through the Commonwealth Parliament a public inquiry into litigation funding and class actions, and there was considerable unknown areas. So if you're one of the growers to Carnarvon Cherry Proprietary Limited, we think we know who you are. We are going to write to you. You will get our emails and you will get an invitation. You can also, you can join up as a grower, and we have a very interesting person to be the lead plaintiff. So you can't be the lead plaintiff, but you can be a class action member. And we do have this AFSL. We've got the details of our AFSL on our website, www.dcpartners.solutions, and search in there AFSL and you'll find the particulars of our AFSL. So here we are. We're almost at the end of another episode of Season 1, Episode 2 of the 5 R's podcast, Rogues, Rascals, Rorts, Rip-Offs and Reviewables. And there was another R that we added today. I can't remember what it was, but Racketeers, I think that might have been it. So look, there's an endless stream of arses, and we're here to shine the light on them and discuss them and answer your questions. And look, through our AFSL, if we can help people like you to obtain a just outcome, we'd be super keen to do that. So at the end, you'll see some contact details for us, 1300 327 123. You can always email us at solutions@dcpartners.solutions, or talk to us in the bottom corner of the screen. There's an instant chat there on our website, www.dcpartners.solutions. Love to hear from you. Love to receive your emails. If you've got any feedback on any of our horror stories, if you happen to know one of our villains, if you've got documents about them or anything you want to shed some light on, maybe you used to work there, you want to clear your conscience, however it is, by all means, come and make contact with us, and we'd love to hear from you. And we'll be seeing you very soon. We've got endless oodles of juicy tidbits for for our viewers. And thank you very much for the incredible response. We've had lots and lots of interest in the podcast. So we'll look forward to producing episode 3 for you in the very near future.